Afternoon, everyone. Today is September 10th, 2024 at 4 p.m. This is the meeting of the Rate Review Committee meeting. This meeting of the Ayer Rate Review Committee will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation via Zoom is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID number 828-8571-8742 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220, extension 100 prior to the meeting. And this meeting is now called to order. All right, first up on the agenda is, has everyone looked at the meeting minutes from May 28th?
Yes.
Okay. Any comments, concerns?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
And the chair says aye. Meeting minutes are approved. All right, so first on the agenda is the review and discussion of the transfer station study recommendation. I've written kind of a couple of notes that we had talked about in the meeting minutes to make sure that we have the answers to those questions. So who wants to start?
So, Madam Chair, maybe I think I have a similar list. Maybe one of the things we could start with through you is, I know Barbara looked at the question of the subsidy as well as the issue of enterprise fund versus general fund. So I know she has some handouts, so maybe Barbara could start with that one and then we'll go to the others on the list.
Sure.
Okay.
So regarding the subsidy, I did just print out early this morning the history of the subsidy, and it kind of shows that it started out very high, about 350,000, and then it decreased over the years. And then I kind of noticed it would decrease for a couple of years and then it would pop back up. I think as we were, dwindling our retained earnings is my educated guess on that. And this year for fiscal 25, we have budgeted 180,000 for the general fund subsidy. And I just want to point out that the indirect costs are 134,658. So we really kind of have a net amount of 45,342 that hits the tax levy, because we have to, with an enterprise, you have to show the transparency of all the things that are paid out of the general fund that are for things that incorporate the stormwater. The solid waste enterprise, like employees, their Middlesex County assessments, their Medicare, their employer share of the insurance. So I just wanted to point that out. And as you mentioned before, Janice, I did a quick calculation, and just taking the general fund subsidy of 180,000, it's 0.00943 of the omnibus budget. It is not something that is going to hurt the town, in my opinion. We've been doing this all right along with this.
Right.
And
One point of clarification, so in this, you have the 134 is indirect expenses. Is that part of the 569 budget? The expense, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah, the expense.
yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes,
that's
I didn't
okay.
see what you were looking at. Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
So the indirect expenses are part of the expense budget, and then the general fund subsidy is.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, so
Yep.
it was.
Yep.
being
Yeah, so it is
reported
accounted for in that 569,000. So I guess this brings me to the review of talking about whether we want to keep it as an enterprise fund or go back to the general fund. So just to give you some basic information, we can put it back to the general fund, of course. It takes an act of legislative vote, and you have to preset a date. And then what would happen is you have to close out the enterprise fund, and you close out your assets, your liabilities, date, everything would close out to the general fund. So you'd lose the transparency that we have established right now. So your revenues would become part of general fund revenues versus them directly being shown to offset solid waste expenses. So that to me would be the negative of going back to having. The other thing is just to keep in mind, even though our revenues would increase if we, for the fiscal year, we go back to, if we went back to having it in a general fund, your expenses would also increase. So you're gonna have this percentage and this visual of this large increase beyond this budget. So just keep that in mind.
Okay, so keeping the enterprise fund.
I
Is a
personally,
benefit.
I personally think we are fine and would vote to keep it.
On this 180,000 that you have for the general fund subsidy.
Yep.
Is that at the 0.094 or whatever you just quoted?
Yes, that's for the current fiscal 25 budget, that percentage for the fiscal 25 that we just started.
So if we went to, say, for example, if we went to a full 1%,
Okay.
what
Yeah.
would that be? What is it?
Probably do a quick.
I'm just curious.
This. We were doing it to the omnibus budget.
Mhm. So it would add on another number. Okay.
I mean, if you compare it to the start when we first established this. And
What was that number, Barbara,
189,000.
189 and change.
Would be-
So it would only be an increase of 9,000.
Yeah,
All right.
the 189, 620.
Perfect.
That's negligible. Yeah, so that's negligible. Okay. All right. So that answered the question as far as the enterprise fund. Which is good. We've kind of. Thank you. That's, we've been trying to get the answer to that question for a few years now, and now it's finally like been answered. So, so I appreciate that. All right. So. What is else on the study? That we were talking about this. Now, if we go with just like what's in the order of like the last meeting minutes, if
Mhm.
we use that as kind of our guide as our checkoff,
Okay.
okay?
Yep.
It'd probably be clearer.
Sure.
So after we discussed the enterprise fund as to whether or not to keep it, then we started talking about the rate model and also the bag costs compared to other transfer stations. And we noticed, the cost of our bags was huge. That being said, we also did notice that how we keep our transfer station, the hours that we keep our transfer station open are different than on other towns. Isn't it Harvard that's only open like one day a week?
Yeah, Harvard,
Yeah,
Wednesday and Saturday, but it's only like 4 hours one day and 6 the other,
yeah,
10 total.
yeah. So
Basically, yeah.
we've definitely been open for the weekends for. That long.
I've been there.
That long,
Yeah.
so it wouldn't, okay, so, that being said. We talked about also the alternative C on page 4 of the memo, which I wish I had in front of me now. The bag cost could be reduced with 6 to 8% increase on the permit fees, which we'll discuss. Oh, do you have it in the?
So
packet?
on the packet, because it's part of
Oh,
the minutes, that's okay. Yeah.
Look,
That's
thank
okay.
you.
All right.
I saw the minutes and I was like, okay,
Oh, that's good.
so, thank you.
That,
Sorry. All right, so page 4. Yeah. But. The bag costs. Are more of a budgetary item than the permits are. Because the bag costs are a monthly. And we buy how many in a bag?
5
5 in a bag?
bags in a bag.
Right, so that can be, depending on what size bag, that can be a pretty hefty price. That is incorporated in the monthly budget, whereas the transfer station. Cause it's once a year, you know, it falls into your budget a little differently. You know, so I think that that's something to think, so I am. Convinced me, but I'm not in favor of raising the bag prices. But again. I'm not the final say, so we don't have to worry about that. Now you said there was a perception of paying for bags up every couple of weeks. I don't understand what you were saying. You know, I read that and I'm sure it made sense when you said that at the time, but this perception of paying for bags every couple of weeks. I think it depends on the household,
Yeah,
you know, I think probably for most households, the 5 bags does it.
definitely would, right?
Yeah,
Like I'm a family of 4 and I use medium bags in Harvard. We use 1 per weekend, so I'm there once a month. I buy like 2 rolls, they last me 2 to 3 months, but it depends, right? Like if you have a bigger household or if you're even smaller,
right,
but how often you would buy them.
okay. And then, Kurt, you had factored that we had 2 33-gallon bags a week, could be $40 in bags a year. I don't. I'm reading that in the meeting minutes, I'm like, I don't,
Yeah, that was quick,
yeah, I don't know how you came up with that, because I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense.
well, that would be $40 in bags. Here,
Yeah,
no, no.
Yeah.
So hold it, 33-gallon bags are, there's the medium bags or the,
That's the medium, 33.
oh,
Yeah,
the 33 or medium?
Yeah,
Okay,
15,
so
33,
that's
55.
$10, that should be $40 a month.
Yeah.
So $40 a month times $480.
yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
um. So the medium-sized bags. I did myself earlier this week. Those are, okay,
How
Yeah.
many kitchen
I usually
bags?
fit 4 to 5 kitchen bags.
okay, so the medium-sized ones are, yeah, so that's, yeah, those are pretty, those are.
Yeah,
good.
you can
Yeah.
stuff them pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually works out, but that's 2 and 2, yeah.
So you said it's 40 in a month.
Yeah, that was,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
yes,
Okay,
because I was going 2 bags a week. So I was going to
Yeah,
the extreme of,
There's not a weight limit on how much you can.
no, it's not weight, it's
It's size.
yeah, just what you can fit in it.
yeah,
Yeah, so my family of 4, we do 1 bag a week typically, unless it's like Christmas week or something.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
okay. I know we just approved the meeting minutes, but do we need to clarify, did he say month? At the
Yeah,
time or year?
if it's per month,
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
and if
So-
there's no objection, I'll just make that change.
I do not object.
Okay.
to That clarification.
Sorry, Kurt, on that, so it's 40 a month. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Which, you know, depending on a household,
Mhm.
that's a lot, you know?
yeah, I mean, I'm not looking at it as 2 adults and 2 children, but you've got more children, and in my case, I sometimes have my, empty the trash in the house and go out to my workshop and throw more stuff in there. So, yeah, I mean, that's just gonna be 260 minimum,
Yeah,
so it's 365.
all right. We had also talked about how employees using black bags. And the public thinking they're subverting the use of transfer station bags, so it was discussed and you were asked to do an operation change.
Yeah, so I sent out a note and asked people to no longer put it through the front there, to go in the back, to put the black bags.
Okay,
So that's in motion.
okay,
Yeah.
good, because that'll help.
Oh, yeah,
Believe it or not, that will help, because if people don't see, if it truly was the employees bringing these black bags. Then that will alleviate that concern that, you know, somebody's getting away for something.
right.
So, and then if we start seeing black bags appear, then we'll know, okay, wait a minute, this is not the employees and we need to do more enforcement. Okay, all right,
Mhm.
great. Thank you. Let me see, that was- Oh, yes, And I meant to check the website before I came here. So of course, we had approved a few years back, Devon's residents being able to get a permit. And of course, they say no one has, which we also established that when people were calling in saying, hey, I don't live in Ayer, can I get a permit? They were getting a no, and that was the end of the conversation. So it, within the realm of possibility that it was a Devon's resident, and since they didn't say, well, I'm Devon's, I vote in there or anything like that, that maybe information wasn't being given out correctly because there was no follow. Okay, so that being said, but it wasn't on the website to say, hey, Devon's residents who, are, voting there or whatever like that. If you want to get a permit, you can get a permit. So have we ever updated the website?
So I haven't done that.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
make sure it gets done.
Yeah, I
Before the
mean, and
next
then
meeting.
I'll bring it up tomorrow at our Devon's jurisdiction meeting. You might get one, you might get nobody. But at the same time, since we did approve it, there should be a note to saying to people that they can do that.
So we'll have to think of how we check that, like how we check for stuff against motor vehicle.
It's like, we use the voter registration.
So you guys have access.
They're registered in Ayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to do it once and unfortunately the person was not registered in Ayer.
Yeah, so, again, I mean, probably not get anybody, but, we did approve it, so we at least should have it listed somewhere. Okay, so I had asked about, a one-day pass. So let me back up. So the situation was with respect to issue of selling permits and bags on site at a kiosk, we all know that there were gonna be all sorts of problems. And even if you have a cash kiosk, you still need to have somebody that know how to fix it when it jams, okay? Which we all know those can be a headache. So then it would be a convenience factor for a couple of days of on-site sales. So it was then like, well, what about a one-day pass? And could people bring the receipt and show that as, hey, here is my one-day pass? So can you go online and get the one-day pass, print out a receipt, and then show that if someone asks?
So I still need to look further into that one. I haven't done that yet.
Okay,
I'll just say maybe. I mean, it's because we check, make sure they're a resident and all those things, but if we put it online. I gotta think about it and talk with Pam and how we would work that.
yeah.
But that
Because,
would be-
well, I
That would be awesome though, to be able to just do it on your phone. and go up.
right, so.
I'm sure you could make that, as long as we can. cover all
Because
the
I mean, we
bases.
buy our permits online and everything, and then they get mailed to us. I would think that, if we can then say, okay, I want to do the one-day pass versus trying to get over to the DPW to get that one-day pass. Cause sometimes you get up on a Saturday morning and you're like, I need that one-day pass.
Yeah,
And then that would help alleviate that. And they could stick it in their window, hey, this is one-day pass or
Yeah.
something. Or like you said, show it on the phone, if anyone asks,
Right.
oh no, here I have it,
yeah,
and then that person, if they really wanted to make a stink, they could just follow up with town hall the next day or something.
yeah.
So
So
there's always one, yeah.
I'll look into that
Okay.
more. I didn't get to, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Let me just bring that out to a bigger picture. So I can get my transfer station sticker online,
You order it
can.
online.
You can.
order online, and then what it's
And
mailed
then it's
to.
mailed to us,
Okay.
right?
I'm just throwing this out for, in general, because one thing I'm hearing is, with the one day pass and other stuff, it's hard to do, like if we had, or taking cash at the transfer station. So what I was thinking, and maybe Robert, you and Barbara, is that are we looking town-wide to using some more online payment systems for other services?
We pretty much have everything online,
Okay.
yeah,
So,
water bill, everything's done online,
You can do it.
yeah.
The tough thing sometimes we have with residents or customers is that the convenience fee for the credit cards get pushed on to them. So sometimes
Okay.
they want to still pay with cash or check so they don't get hit with. the fine.
Right.
okay, when we say pay online, is it like, where I can go into an app and just pay something and get a go show my app and stuff, or is it?
You go to the
Oh.
website, you go to the department of whatever, so for example, maybe you want to pay your water bill.
Mhm.
Or, you know, or your taxes, that's a good one, because that's what I use.
Okay.
So I'll go to, you know, to pay my taxes, online. And so you can create an account and then it's like, yep, okay, here
Oh,
you
I see.
are, as far as, yep, this is the car you're paying for, this is the trailer you're paying for. And then you boom, 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 and you pay for it all online, just
And
with your
what-
debit card.
Okay.
Or credit card.
Or credit card.
Right.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
so, but the 1 day permits have been going on for years. Okay, so this is somebody who doesn't use the transfer station on a regular basis.
So we do what 1 day permits right now?
Oh, yeah, it's been going on for
okay.
years, yeah, so, but it's, you'd have to know, like, on, you know,
Come in
at least Friday
Yeah.
before
Mhm.
you're gonna use it that weekend to get over to the DPW to pick up your 1 day pass.
Right.
Now, if you're at work and you haven't had a chance to get over to the DPW before it closes, you can't go that next day or even that Sunday.
Okay.
So if we sell it online and then at least have some type of a receipt that it's in the email or something that a person can show if someone asks, oh, wait a minute, we noticed you don't have a permit. Oh, no, if you check, Town Hall instituted for the 1 day permit.
Right.
And
Okay,
so
so
that
that's-
way you don't have to worry about it, you know, if you 6 o'clock at night, you're like, crap, I was supposed to go to the DPW today to get my permit. Then you can do that,
Okay, so that's your
right?
perfect lead into sort of what I was saying is that, so what you're talking about is a more easy to use payment system.
Right,
So
right,
my,
right.
would we have any use for an easier to use payment system for other town services? I guess that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
So in other words, instead of just getting an easy to use payment system just for this purpose,
Oh,
maybe we could use it for
I think
other.
we were just piggybacking on top of what we got now. I
Right,
think-
right, because we do everything, it's pretty much everything is done online
Yes,
as far as payments wise.
Yeah.
before the transfer station in particular, what we do is we take the motor vehicle excise equipment. And Pam uploads that, and that's how we check with their residents, because their vehicles garaged in there. So I wonder if we could do a menu item where the 1 day permit would also. apply.
Right, that's
That's-
what we have to fill that gap,
It might
with
just be a
checking and
menu
making
item.
sure
I
they're a
don't know.
resident.
Well,
So
the
somehow,
thing is if
without a person check.
if the person is living in Ayer
Mhm.
and their car is garaged in Ayer, even getting the 1 day permit, it's already gonna check it.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if we could somehow add that as an item with where we accept them online with Unipay.
Right.
For the regular ones that cross checks.
And you sync that. and
Yeah.
Check it.
We add a menu item for 1 day permit that also syncs.
Yeah.
So Pam and I will have.
Yeah.
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 So,
Yeah, so that's what, this sort of, if we can integrate, so.
Yeah.
Now I was sort of jumping
Big
ahead
issue
to,
would be people that move in
Yeah.
here.
you would guys,
Right.
so do you use some software that does that, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Unipay or something,
Unipay.
yeah.
So Barbara, would you, maybe as a homework assignment, let's look into that
I will.
in 1 day. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm just coming from if we're.
Yep.
If we've got something that could be used for more things, then it's more costly.
But yeah, so like the conveyance fee,
So the
that
conveyance
can
fee,
be annoying.
It can be annoying, the e-check, in my opinion, is a better option because it's cheaper than mailing a check in. If you have it debited right out of your check.
Right, but that's if somebody's kind of like scheduled that, you know,
Yeah.
created an account. Which they could still do that if they, you know, it's not gonna hurt them by creating an account through the town. Then if they want to use it, they use it. If they don't want to use it, they don't use it.
Then they have
You
a
know.
history of receipts.
That too, yeah. So, okay, so yeah, let's look into that.
Thanks for your patience, as sometimes I don't explain things.
All right. Okay, so then we talked about the hours. It was recommended, 2 recommendations, or, no, I'm not gonna say recommendations, 2 ideas. Because they didn't really like recommend anything. But 2 ideas, one would be, having, I think it was like 11 to 7
Yeah.
on Wednesday. And then you could have like the whatever 7 to 11 on Tuesday mornings. If you wanted to increase the, so to avoid the overtime. Okay, is they gave the idea of, like swapping that out. I don't know how that will affect the Wednesday morning users. But I do think we need to address this whole, overtime thing.
Yeah. So they had a proposed, there was two options. One was, so Saturday, Sunday stay the same, 7 to 3, both days. Wednesday, right now, it's 7 to 7. Proposed Wednesday changes to 11 to 7. And that eliminates your overtime. The other one, you were mentioning, Janice, was do 7 to 11 on Tuesday and then 3 to 7 on Wednesday. So then you no longer have any evening hours. That
3 to
one,
7 would be an evening hour.
oh, I guess, oh, sorry. Yeah. Disregard that last part. Yeah, so that one's a little harder for operations. Mondays and Tuesdays are good to have blocked off for the vendors to be coming.
Right, but I was curious that the fact that they mentioned that for Tuesday, did they see something?
7 to 3.
Did they see something for like that Tuesday morning that it wouldn't impact your vendors?
I talked to him about it and I mentioned that this could be an issue. I said, it's an idea, and I talked to Andrew too, the Jacksonville foreman up there.
Right.
And I think it would impact the vendors, because some days they'll come on the Monday. It's good to have those lag days, especially there's so many things that are actually removing the oil, the black earth, the organics, cardboard, recycling, trash. So it really, having that whole day
Mhm.
is good. I know they do, the Mondays, they predominantly will take cleanup and move the brush down to the brush dump. Sometimes that moves into Tuesdays too, but I think keeping the safety the way it is and having those 2 days is a better, in my opinion, a better way to move forward. But there was
Having the
nothing from
2
talking to
days?
them about that they noticed that it would, not impact the operation. It was really more, I told them, this is what we do. I talked to Andrew, because they haven't seen enough of the operation to know that we possibly impact or not those hours.
Right.
Yeah.
What was their car count for Wednesday?
Oh,
And did they do enough
Yeah.
data? Like, did they do enough days to kind of get us a recent, a decent
so I mean, I think,
picture?
yeah, it's in their memo. There's some numbers in there, but I think that would be a good idea if I had like a traffic counter up there. See what you get
I
from
think we
those,
should do.
that
our-
Wednesdays especially. What do you get in Wednesday morning? If we're gonna move it less than 7.
I think we should do
You know,
that. We
then-
should do our own
Yeah.
count based on
Right.
the proposed. count.
Right,
Yeah,
rather than just some hand counts,
Oh.
get an actual.
I could leave something out like that for a couple of months.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you look at this, when they did the April 17th and May 2nd, that's a lot of cars going from 3 to 7.
Well, I think that's the nice thing about Wednesday is you get
What's that?
the evening. That's it. To me, the evening hours was the neat part about having Big Open on Wednesday. It's 7.
I know that there are
Going
quite a
to
few
11
people
to
that
7.
have liked the evening hours.
Yeah,
But but this is only showing us the evening hours, but if you're looking at that's a lot of. 25 cars came through 3 to 4 PM, and then 25 cars came through 4 to 5 PM, 28 cars, 5 to 6. and 19, 6 to 7.
Good point.
Oh, 17.
Hey, I'm sorry, what you hear?
That week is a vacation week, so
That's still a lot of cars, vacation week or not, because the following week was not a vacation week. 3 to 4 was 28, 4 to 5 was 24, 5 to 6 was 17, 6 to 7 for 14. So being a vacation week really didn't impact it too much.
So that's probably, when you think about it, we sell about 1,300 tickets a year, and say the top number at April 17th probably adds up to 100 cars. So that's, almost 10% of the users going into that hour.
Right, but what that's telling me is that there are a lot of people that want those hours, when I look at that.
Yeah, so I think putting a counter out and getting some more data, especially outside these hours,
Yes,
to understand would be beneficial.
Yeah, so
yeah,
I see three things and 3 assignments I'll follow up with respect to the hours. So I think the first thing is, we need to, and we may not, we won't have that answer today, but one, we need to figure out the best of our ability, what is the best hours, which ties into number two, as Janice and Dan brought up. I think number two, if we can do our own count, Dan, and get some more data, that would help. And the third thing that, and I don't disagree with, we've heard loud and clear, is the issue of the mandatory, overtime. I will deal with that with Dan, with the select board, because that contract is actually up now, and with the board, we've got to make that, we'll make that change. So there's that piece, which there's been concern about. It was done last time, we need to correct that. So I think if we could get some more, not to put you on the spot, but to put you on the spot, so how soon do you think we could set up the traffic count?
It's usually probably next week or the week after. I just gotta
Okay, so what I'm getting at is if
secure-
we could get that data for the, when I say now, for the fall, like say in October, we, have another meeting with that data. We have that data,
Yeah,
we use that expanded data to figure out, and we know this is a great experiment anyhow, but figure out to the best of our ability, what would be the optimal hours. And then the contract's gonna come up, we'll deal with the overtime piece, which should be situational as opposed to mandatory, was what I had, in my notes.
mhm.
And at least that would be, I think, the first step. I'm not questioning the data they did, but I think if we can expand that, it would be helpful.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because they're pretty much doing only the 3 to 7
Yeah.
in this, and we kind of need a little bit more.
And I think what Kurt said, I think
Yeah.
about the evening hours, I have heard too, granted anecdotally, but people do like the convenience of the evening hours if they're not weekend folks.
Yeah, it does, it
Yeah.
helps, especially because then it frees up your weekend. You
Yeah.
know,
yes, but
I mean, there are plenty of times when it's like, oh, I didn't go to the transfer station on Wednesday, now I gotta do it on the weekend, and we were gonna do this and this and that, so. you
I
know.
think summertime too, when your weekends are booked.
Right.
I'd like to see the traffic on like Sundays.
Hmm.
Oh, it can be pretty, oh yeah,
Yeah.
weekends, oh yeah,
See how
oh yeah,
busy it is.
it can be.
yeah.
Curiosity.
Once you kick
You
off.
could be nuts. I honestly, there are things that you need to understand. Don't touch the shed. And you better be really careful in changing those hours on a weekend.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't suggesting that.
Okay, well, I'm just, let you know, just.
And don't touch the radio.
Don't.
For God's sake, don't touch the radio.
Sorry. We-
No.
But yeah, oh yeah, it just, there,
Yeah.
yeah, touch that shed or change,
Touch the shed.
touch that shit, those sheds or change those weekend hours and. Boy, people that you've never seen before will come out of the woodwork. So we take our transfer station very seriously. And we want it the way we want it. We're not gonna sell for anything less, so.
I am a denizen of the swap shed.
Okay,
It's just the,
okay, and then there was one other thing I was just wondering, because we were talking about, like the conditions up there for the employees and everything. They are out in the weather, all the time.
Mhm.
Is there anything I know they've got that trailer and everything, but they also have to be outside. I know sometimes they'll have like, a little heater put on in the shed, but. Is there anything we can do, to improve it? A little better? Or do they want it? I mean, they could be fine the way it
I
is.
think they're fine, yeah, I've
You know.
talked to them and they're fine and they
Okay.
drop it, but, obviously it would be nice if there was some, a little more comfortable scenario, especially if you're monitoring
Right,
bags or
yeah,
recycling.
so,
areas.
what can we do? Oh,
So,
just throwing it out there, cause it just popped into my head. Like if there was like a little shelter or something that needed to be built or something like that, maybe a Boy Scout project. Okay. Popped into my head for some reason,
I can work with Andrew
Yeah.
and Frank,
so,
see where they're at, I mean,
yeah,
cause they've,
well, I mean,
They rough it.
the last couple of winters have been pretty mild. But, doesn't
Do
mean we're
do
not
they
gonna
do
get
their
one.
own snow removal or is that part of the general snow?
they clean up the station. They're responsible for the station and they help plow the streets.
That's true, they have got.
But if the station's open, they're working there instead of the streets. Yeah.
But if it's a big event, transfer station's closed and they're out. Well,
Yeah.
I've seen them, so. Okay, all right, I think that covered what I saw in the minutes that I wanted to. Oh, so we been having a senior tax work off?
Yeah, so there's been a gentleman, Keith Becker, he's been going up part-time on weekends and monitoring bags, and Andrew said everyone loves him. He gets his making a lot of friends, but he's been up there monitoring and
Oh, great.
doing his work. So he's probably gonna be there into the fall for another month or two till he gets all his hours.
Cool.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, Mister, nobody wants it.
Right.
Turns out they
We
do.
got it.
Mhm. So, okay, I think that was kind of my updates from the notes, So we still have a couple of things we're gonna look at, which is good.
Can I bring up something that has sort of occurred to me as we've talked, and it's
No.
actually, I think, is going to lead into, because what we're looking at is. With the rate scenarios,
Which we were gonna get into next, yeah.
right, this is my is, the annual permit increase, value increases. This is, I'm surprised that this didn't come up. And yard debris and brush, so in other words, I mean, I'm noticing, especially now with fall coming up and everything. Folks, we handle a lot of yard debris and brush out there, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and what I'm just thinking about is. Not everybody takes advantage of that. In other words, in other words, I've got a big yard cleanup I'm going to do, and I was actually talking to a contractor about him doing it, and he quoted me, I'm like, no, I'm gonna take it up to the transfer station. And I was realizing that, boy, that's covered in my annual permit. It's a good deal.
And that's why a lot of people get a one-day pass.
Okay, so I guess
For
that's what
that
I'm.
type of stuff.
Okay, so that we do, so where I was leading is that are we covering that yard debris brush cost? That we're covering through the annual permit because we don't charge a bag. And then if anybody's using it above and beyond, they can.
Yeah, to get access, you would need the 1 day
One
pass
day
if you didn't have the annual pass. Yeah. That's how it's configured.
So what I'm thinking is that as we look, again, we'll get into this further as we start balancing annual permits going up, raising cost annual permits versus bags is maybe I'm just because of this thing leaning more towards the annual permit because I get a lot more with my annual permit. I get yard waste, the recycling, all included.
Mhm.
And anyway, it's just something to consider. And then raising that, we wouldn't have to raise the bag fees. That just that was my thinking there. Just to go forward. Because I'm thinking that we want to be careful about raising the bag fees.
Again, those bag fees, they're terrible.
Okay, so
That may be a good segue to the next.
yeah, that was.
topic.
Well, we still haven't really, I mean, I know we talked about the transfer station and how it's being used in other towns, but we still haven't really talked about the huge discrepancy in bag prices, so. With the other towns, but okay. All right, so. All right, now, we're not making a decision tonight, we're discussing this, as far as the permit.
So, but yeah, as the chair just said, it's just an initial discussion, no decision. Today we have additional meetings. I did ask Dan to just prepare a memo, and that's all, a memo to sort of facilitate the discussion as to where we are as of right now with things. Again, open for review and discussion, but maybe Dan, do you want to just give a very quick highlight of
Yeah,
the
sure.
key points?
Yeah, okay, so I updated all the data in the solid waste fee model with FY 24 actual revenue and expenses. The amount of bags we sold last year, all the variables which we use to trend and project to FY 25. And so looking at the memo, we can run through, but basically we have our FY 25 solid waste budget, 569,000. And then for revenues, aside from the stickers and bags, we have the tax levy, that's the subsidy, and that's set from town meeting in April, set that at 180,000. That's what's been authorized. Retained earnings were authorized at the town meeting, 36,996. And then the expected revenue from a few other items, solar lease, recycling items, linens, is just around 30,000. So doing a math here, the revenue required from the permit stickers and paving pro bags is about 322,000. So then going to page 2. So when you plug the FY 25 numbers into the model, we come out with the current rates would generate $309,425. So it's about $13,000 under what the sales revenue needed, shown at the bottom of the table. And down in the important notes below, the reasons I see this happening compared to FY 24, our bag sale trends were slightly down compared to previous years. So I basically use an average of the past 3 years of bag sales, large, medium, and small, and that's stuff, and that's what we use to project what we expect for FY 25. So that lowered the revenue we'd be getting from our bag sales a little bit, probably about 10 or 15,000, probably right around what we would need. And the number of permits sold have been pretty level in the past several years, so those projections are close to level. So the bag sale trends were down. The other thing is the subsidy and retained earnings, those are lower than we had last year. So we don't have as much in that pot to use toward our sales revenue. And then a positive note that helped us, the FY 25 solid waste budget is lower than FY 24 by approximately 30,000. Brought it with me. A few of the things. So one of the things was the capital item came off the driveway paving. And the other is our recycling commodities prices have been more favorable. So based on the trends of the past few years, I lowered the budget. So those are the main drivers. What's that?
Those are toilets.
Well, that is true. I was looking at it earlier. We probably used to get around 4,000 in bulk, around $4,000 in our bulk item revenue, but now we're getting more like 10 to 13,000. So it's not black and white because it's bulked in with our revenue that we get for the transfer
Right, it's
station
kind of
stickers.
situational too, you know?
Yeah, right. Like how much people are disposing of these items, but. So that's kind of where it's sitting right now. I didn't do any deeper dive or any recommendation on that end. Further in the memo, factors impacting transfer station rates. These are the same as last year. Just our solid waste disposal costs are still pretty high. Recycling disposal has been better. The commodities market's more favorable. General costs due to inflation, and then what we decide for our levy or for our subsidy. I also put in, this was something that came up during the meeting with the consultant, but the private hauler comparison. And so I did reach out to Prime Disposal, and I heard through the grapevine, they're like the cheapest around. So you can see in here, they're $50 per month for a 96-gallon trash and recycling bin. The weekly pickup, that's $600 per year. I didn't do any crazy calculations from the transfer station side of things. If you were to be a transfer station user, I just did kind of what I mentioned before, what I use in my town, and it's very similar. It's the same bag size. So if it was me living in there, I'd be paying about $365 a year using the transfer station. But obviously it depends on how many bags people use.
Right, which could average out to about $30 a month.
Yeah.
But still,
Right, so, and I think too, that would be like a good blurb, you know, coming up in the months, like, you know, this is how much you pay for Prime a month, this is how much you pay for the transfer station a month.
That'd be good marketing.
You know, and to kind of put that in a little clearer.
So
So, oh, I'm sorry.
just one other thing, right before I got here, I was looking for some fiscal information from other towns. And this is way back in 2022, I did a comparison of Ayer to Harvard, Littleton, Spencer, and Groton. All four of those towns are using the general fund. They don't use an enterprise fund, only Ayer does. But I was able to find a good breakdown of Littleton's general fund budget. And their total budget for FY 24 was around $458,000. But that doesn't include indirect costs, and there's no debt included in there. Otherwise, they seem to have, I haven't shown this to Barbara yet, but I just found it, I'll send it to you. But they seem to have similar expenses to us. So, you know, if they had those costs, and they'd probably have a very similar budget to us, around the 569,000. So, you know, being in the general fund where they are, everything kind of goes into the omnibus budget. So when you set the rate for the stickers and the bags and things, it's not as cut and dry as the way we see it being in the enterprise fund. So I think that kind of ties back to what do we want to do for a subsidy. So long story short, it's hard to describe what their subsidy is, but they're probably subsidizing more than we are. If
Right.
their costs, if their bag and sticker prices are lower. But I just wanted to point that out, and I can share this. I just found it before it came here. I was looking around.
All right. Question, how is money being put into the retained funds? Where is it coming from?
So retained earnings,
Yeah.
it's similar to free cash. It's the enterprise funds free cash. So what we do is we budget an amount to help for a conservative budget every year. If it's not used, it gets turned back into retained.
Right,
earnings.
right. I understand that, but at some point in time, we had to say we were gonna put umpty amount of percentage into this enterprise fund. To
Yes.
create that retained earning.
Yeah, so I think when you look at the very beginning of the history, where we have these large subsidies, that's probably where we're having some money left over to start building your retained earnings. Back when we were doing a $550,000 subsidy, it was probably coming from the tax levy. Which is, I think, a very normal process when you're establishing an enterprise fund. And it's actually, I did check with the DOR on that, and it is normal to fund, you know, for the beginning of an enterprise fund to have it funded from the tax. levy.
Yeah. No, but that's, I don't
It's
think,
not found.
I don't think you're answering my question.
Oh,
At least not to where I can understand. We have an enterprise fund, doesn't matter what enterprise fund. Somewhere along the line, we as a town said, this is a percentage of whatever that we're gonna put into this fund, and this fund. Okay? So if I gave you $5, how much of that $5 are you putting into solid waste enterprise?
so I don't know exactly how they planned it back when they started.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
but-
Does that need to be fixed? And maybe I'm not being clear, maybe I'm not understanding, I'm starting to get confused myself now. If you have $5, that's how much the town's brought in. And you've got to now divvy it up between all your funds, there is a percentage in there. So much percentage will go into solid waste, so much percentage will go into water, so much percentage will go into sewer. So if the percentage is 0.5, should it be 0.6?
So I'm not sure if I know how to answer that. I can say what we try to do is budget our expenses and our revenues conservatively so that hopefully there's more revenue than expenses. And that leftover is what goes into your retained earnings at the end of the year. If
Okay.
you have
Okay.
extra.
All right.
At the very beginning, when you're establishing the enterprise fund, there was probably a estimated budget done for the first few years, and they probably raised that on the tax levy.
Okay.
Based on educated, information on costs.
All right, okay, I think I'm back
Is that-
with it again, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you get lost.
It can be.
Yeah.
And
It's a lot.
we have a balance in retained earnings.
We do.
Well, for the enterprise fund, for the solid, for the transfer station fund.
Yep, so for fiscal 23, which is what we use to budget for fiscal 25, the retained earnings was $128,091. We don't have fiscal 24 yet, we're just in the process of year-end closing. And I can tell you, we budgeted fiscal 24 to use $45,000 of the retained earnings, and we did not have it.
I think,
What was the amount you just said?
The retained earnings balance.
Right, for FY 23?
Yep, 128,091. And that would have been what we used for budgeting fiscal 25.
And we're talking about using 36,000 from the retained earnings of that 134 you just mentioned?
So the 128,000
128.
is that number is going to change when we close fiscal 24. And my current estimates are that it will come back over 132,000 plus, based on current estimated numbers.
Well, what I'm saying is if we have enough in retained earnings, can we use more of retained earnings?
So we
Can
could,
we use like 50,000 of retained earnings?
we could,
Which would help bring back down a little bit of the revenue from the permit, and then if we did a full 1% of the tax levy. So we did that, making it to 189,622, that would bring down the revenue required from permit stickers and pay-as-you-go. Throw to 312, and then if you upped the retained earnings a little bit to. I'm just throwing out numbers here, okay? To 50. That, is approximately another 13,000 that could bring it down to 299. Just,
I get what you're saying, to use more
Yeah.
retained earnings to
Right.
offset the
right,
budget. Do you know in the policy for this, solid waste, is there a goal for the enterprise fund? like
I don't
we have
know.
For water, so I have to.
so,
I know in water and sewer, we have the.
yeah.
Do.
Yeah, because I know we do that a lot with water and sewer. There've been times when we've not had a rate increase for water because we used to retain earnings. Sewer, we're not able to do that yet, but
Yeah.
we're getting there. A few more years.
So I don't know if we can change these numbers, tax levy and the retained earnings.
Not for
now.
fiscal 25.
Right, it's that town meeting already appropriated
Right,
that.
but I'm assuming we're speaking for.
Yeah, if we would, as the
But-
committee looks to the
Yeah.
future budgets.
Why can't we? We've done it before.
No, meaning these are set for now.
It can't go above 180,000, can't do any more than
But
that.
did we raise it? Did we No, we did it like a year or so ago.
The town meeting voted to fund the solid waste budget with 180,000 of subsidy and 3696 of retainer. It was like warrant article.
Yeah.
That was approved.
I understand
So-
what
so I
you're
think
saying,
that's
I
what
understand what
we-
you're saying, but I know we talked about it and we did increase it a little bit.
Yeah.
A year or two ago after town meeting, so now I'm
Oh.
confused.
I don't know if it was after town meeting.
Well, yeah, because this is when we start talking about transfer station rates. Because we talked about the retained earnings and the tax levy and everything.
Yeah, I don't think we went above like 198,790 was at 424 subsidy. I remember thinking we can go up to that number. Do we want to go up to that number?
So for future years, I was
Yeah.
thinking more for fiscal 26 as we start
Right.
the budget process.
Like
To look at
Really-
using retained earnings, not for the.
Yeah, for the year coming up.
Mhm.
the year coming, because, yeah, and that's kind of like, what do we want the committee, what's the committee want the subsidy to be? Do we want it to subsidize more so that we bring down those bag prices? I think that's still kind of the question we need to answer. I mean, right now, I think we're dealing with this, and with what we got, we're at the 322,000. We can't go any higher on the levy and the retainer, right, Robert?
fiscal
Depends on
25.
appropriate town meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, fiscal
Yeah,
25
fiscal
cannot.
25.
I apologize, I was thinking for fiscal 26. If we went for future, we could choose to
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
increase those things.
when
Let me
we,
be clear.
how do we set those numbers nowadays? Is there like did Lisa have a setup or?
Which one?
The, how much we're gonna subsidize, the tax will be, how much we're gonna.
Yeah, so
give
there's some
retained
spreadsheets
earnings.
with formulas and we plug in and we estimate the remainder of the year's revenue based on history like you do for the past 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
revenue.
Yeah,
And then we kind
and
of
obviously
see
we're,
where we think we're gonna be.
and we're competing with, well, or not, the town is competing, you know, with this budget, with other budgets like the school, especially last year, something like that, like I'm sure. It's a factor, but I'm just. you
Always
know,
gonna be a problem.
And same with the
Stuff like
indirect
that,
costs,
right.
we build in different expenses and then project out expenses to try to the
Yeah.
indirect costs as well.
Okay. But I think it'll be interesting if I could kind of get a number on how much little thing.
You know, how
What
many
they are
employees they have.
subsidizing, yeah, that has that in here, so you might be able to kind of. Try to get a number out of it. Great.
Just to summarize something, so. I think that one thing is we're just doing this discussion here, is that I think. And. Yeah, I think we're on the same page, it's like. We are. Two things, the town is subsidizing. The transfer station, so in other words.
Right, has been for
Yeah,
decades.
and again, the question is how do we keep? So there's that, and then we're also we can use retained earnings towards that. And that's what sort of what let's look at more of that angle. And then the last thing is that we get the rest of the money from the actual fees, the permits, bags, when you pay as you go and what have you. And I think part of the takeaway is that we want to keep that as low as possible. The one thing I was thinking about is as far as the subsidy, and I'm sort of hearing this between the lines, is that I just made some notes here. The subsidy I feel is a good thing that the town subsidizes the transfer station. You know, it's nice, sewer and water, we don't subsidize, they pay us completely as you go, and we do a minimal subsidy for the ambulance. And what I'm just thinking as far as if justifying that is 40% of the town people use the transfer station, so that's a good reason for that. No, these are just some quick talking points is why the town subsidizing the transfer station is a good thing. Is that 40% of the town uses it, so it's a popular town thing to have. One thing that I've always realized is there's less private contractor traffic. If we didn't have any transfer station, we have enough garbage trucks going through town.
There would have to be, if we didn't have the transfer station and we had a town-wide thing,
Yeah.
there would be probably one contractor.
Yeah, this
And
is true.
half the town would be complaining because that wasn't the current contractor that they
Right,
picked.
right. But even.
Yeah.
the-
So-
This keeps private contractor traffic down, so it's a good thing there. Obviously, the recycling thing. And then, when I first talked about the yard debris and brush, it's like, gee, are we getting enough money for that? I was just thinking, that's a good thing because it keeps the town nice looking. People keep their yards clean. Hey, I got a place I can put this. Keeps it neat. And I was just thinking with mosquitoes and everything, Eastern equine, people keeping their yards clean and neat is a valuable thing to have from a health perspective. So, and then the biggest one is that it's cheaper. So in any case, I just thought, it's worth the town subsidizing that. And when we subsidize it, it keeps your bag rates and the other rates down, and you keep them low.
Real quick, I just had all these other towns I've mentioned, they're all in the general fund. I'm sure they're subsidizing to a certain level. It's hard, for us, it's easy to see how much it is. 'Cause
Yeah.
We're taking it from general enterprise.
Yeah, well, all the costs, what we're including as the indirect costs, they're just putting them somewhere else in their budget.
Right.
And I like the fact that we have the enterprise funds because it gives, I'm able to look real quickly and say, hey, again, sewer and water, we pay our way, ambulance, we pretty much pays their way except for a little bit. And then we pay a little bit more for transportation, but all the pluses to me outweigh. Really, it's a good thing. I guess my takeaway is that, we may not have to, because when I was first looking at that, is like, I was thinking, again, I was just like, boy, we should definitely increase the regular permit.
What are we at now?
105.
105 for regular, 60 for souvenir, and 30 for all day.
If we did not increase anything, we'd have like, at least if I'm counting right, a $13,000 shortfall.
Yeah, we would, and this is all modeled, so even if, say we just didn't do anything, didn't increase anything, maybe it turns out we didn't need 322, we only need 309, we're all set. But then it also could turn out we need to go for retain our reserve fund transfer to cover that in the ring here, so. But yeah, 13 grand is what we would look to get out of the permits and bags, 13,000 more.
Question. Why don't we look at using more of retained earnings for the future? I mean, if you're telling me, I'm just gonna use numbers for my example, that I have 120,000 in retained earnings, why can't I use 50 instead of the 36? To help with the out-of-pocket expenses
It's just
for a resident.
we didn't talk, we don't know the number we should have in there, but the slush fund for emergency type of deal, I guess, is why you want to.
What emergency?
So if the loader were to break tomorrow and we needed a new loader, I guess you'd
Oh,
probably
let's
need more
be
than.
honest.
retained
You know what, let's be honest, if the loader broke tomorrow, you'd be in front of the select board going, we need money right now,
Yeah.
because there wouldn't be enough.
Right, I mean, it's not like the water and sewer, we have significant
Right.
infrastructure, the infrastructure up there,
Yeah.
we have the building.
I'm just
the
saying,
equipment.
if
It's not as-
it would be an additional 14,000,
But I think that is a question.
you'd
to look
still
at. How
have
much
at
should we-
least, based on the numbers I just used, 80,000.
And like I said, we don't have our fiscal 24 retained earnings yet. So as we go into budget for fiscal 26, it could be a decision we could make to use more retained earnings.
I mean, I
In the
think it's
fiscal
something we should look at. I
26
think it's
budget,
something we
yeah.
should look at, because, we're asking the resident to pay more and more and more because we're doing the whole, well, in case it rains.
I mean, we
And the
can
state
look
has
at-
shown us that it could pour and they don't care, so,
We can look at it, we could also, like you mentioned, increase how much we subsidize as well for fiscal 26, so
I don't think we'll have to, yeah,
going
that's-
forward, but
it's just. Let me ask
I
you this,
follow to the existing model.
what's the official name of the slush fund?
There's not it's retained, it's retained earnings.
Okay, but this is the amount of money that we keep in balance that just grows each year.
It's like a savings account.
Yeah, the savings got it, okay. I think that's what I was asking, what was the balance of it, that's.
So for fiscal 23 year end, which is the number we used when we budgeted fiscal 25, the balance was $128,091.
May I ask if that retained earnings actually grow each year?
So it actually decreased from fiscal 22 to 23, which is why in 24 we increased the subsidy a little bit.
Okay.
How did you increase? Oh, never mind,
The
no,
During the budget.
No, I was hearing something
Yeah,
else
so
and
you're
you
going-
corrected myself.
Kind of working with data behind to budget forward.
So I.
Okay,
We don't have the results of the retained earnings yet for
Okay.
fiscal 20.
All right.
It's too early.
I just don't know how sustainable it is you can just keep drawing out of it, drawing out of it, drawing out of it, and it's just.
Well, that's the question. is
Yeah.
Whether it is sustainable
What's the
to use more, that would be the decision.
So the.
Well, I think that it should be I think it should be done maybe once in a while. I mean, we're pretty much doing the same amount as far as the retained earnings every year. And all I'm saying is that maybe, once we could go a little higher. But let me ask you this, okay? we've decided everything. We're gonna use retained earnings. We've taken a little bit out of that and your front loader dies and you need more money. You come in front of the board and the FinCom to say, hey, we need so much money from a reserve fund transfer. What account would you be asking for? From,
We taken that from retainer.
You-
For an
so-
enterprise fund. So the reserve account that we have for the general fund budget is for the general.
just went to another university. Don't know what just happened here. I think it's me. I don't know what just happened. So you tell me there's not enough money in retained earnings, you're gonna come to the board. To ask for more money, so you pay for the front loader and you're telling me we're taking the money out of
I
retained
didn't
earnings.
hear you say there was.
Okay.
I thought you said there wasn't enough in the operating budget. Yeah.
Ah, wow.
When you come in to take more money to
Okay,
appropriate additional in your operating budget, you're taking it out of.
okay, that's where I just went into a parallel universe,
Sorry
I'm
about
like,
that.
wow, so that, I think that was the way I worded the question, I think, so that went right where, okay. All right. So if we didn't change, if we didn't increase anything. Worst case scenario, we'd have to do a reserve fund transfer, which I'm not saying I wanna do.
Right.
I'm just wondering. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, as the model
And-
is showing.
And we're thinking that maybe now in,
I don't, my 2 cents, it's just my 2 cents. I don't think we wanna do anything with the bags.
I agree.
We've already had a challenge with the
I
bags.
think we want to try to.
I mean, I know we're not making a decision at this meeting, but I think for sort of a homework assignment for the next meeting, one, we could look at a couple of scenarios with the subsidy and the retained earnings. So back up, so the status quo, all things being equal, if we did nothing, for the sake of discussion, it'd be about a $13,000 shortfall, for the sake of discussion. Which, if we came into a $13,000 shortfall scenario, all things being equal, as a reserve fund or what have you.
and it would come from that retained earnings, right?
Or
Because
it could-
we're only gonna use 37,000, I rounded up
Yeah.
from retained earnings.
Yeah.
And we have a shortfall, and you come in to do a reserve fund transfer. See, I get way too into the weeds, and it gets me off myself
Sorry.
confused. You're gonna take money out of the retained earnings. Cause you would have, cause we've already authorized how much taken out of retained earnings, right? I get way too into it.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So what
I
I think,
confuse myself.
so what I think we should do, for the next meeting is one, have what I'm gonna call Robert's with a status quo scenario. So all things being equal, based on Dan's memo. There'd be a $13,000 shortfall approximately if we did nothing. That would be just a continuation of last year. Then the second option, and there may be a couple of scenarios for this, is, okay, what if we did something with the retained earnings, so we don't have to increase on the perimeter bag side, so we'll call it the retained earnings scenario. The third one would be the subsidy scenario, we'll call it, in other words, with the subsidy piece. And then the fourth scenario would be if you raised the permits / the bags and just Robert's 2 cents or 3 cents. I think we should stay away at a minimum from the bags. That's just. And when was the last time we raised the permit, roughly? And I'm not advocating that for today too, but that would be.
2 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. So scenario one is the status quo, which we sort of have from Dan. In other words, if we do nothing, there's about $13,000 shortfall. Scenario two is between Dan and Barbara, looking at what could we do with the retained earnings to mitigate that. Scenario three, the subsidy. And then the fourth scenario would be what we'll call a rate recommendation. Actually, we should obviously just look at that because it's just a recommendation. And my contribution to that is to stay away from the bags.
Well,
I mean-
there's this fifth option of decreasing the bag prices and increasing the permit.
Oh, yeah, I threw that in there. Bob.
Oh, yeah. All right,
The
so
bottom
that'll
of the
be,
rate
that'll be
scenarios.
number 6.
What would you have to?
We'd have
Would you be-
to jack
if
the
you-
permit.
decrease by $1, the bags, you'd have to increase the permit by, I'm assuming that's 25, the regular,
Yeah, a
10,
regular
10
senior,
senior,
yeah,
and what's the 5, that's.
single day, one day pass.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna put everything just on the table for the sake of discussion,
Yeah,
that'd be
put that
option
there.
6.
When does the solar lease come up for?
I'd have to look.
Was it a
Another,
20 or
it was a
30?
20-year, probably another, what, at least 12 years or so. It's been.
That will-
that long.
And then, I know we get something from the recycling committee. What's recycling items slash linen?
So that's the yellow bins there that accept clothing and
Oh, okay.
linens. and-
Okay.
They pay us rent to put those.
Yeah, we get paid, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And those actually, they don't generate a lot, but now since the textile ban by Mass DEP, maybe we're getting more out of it, but it's not very, don't really see it.
Okay.
Like that.
Another thing
Alright.
we could add, but it may cause a seismic shift, is swap shed admission fee.
Janice did not laugh.
Years ago,
I know.
I came up with an idea
I
that
know.
you could have another entrance to the swap shed so
Yeah.
people could get to the swap shed on non-public days.
Yep. So what if we, in terms of, for the next meeting, why don't we get those, what I'll call those 6 scenarios on a piece of paper, as they say, and flesh them out further for the committee to look at. And then we have some homework assignments from the first part of the meeting on the study, a few things we need to,
Yeah,
and I'll,
All right, I'm gonna ask the question that I. Let's see how well you do with this, the answer this year. When did you hope to go in front of the board to talk about this and then put the permits on for sale?
Ideally, we get them out for sale in November. So then we're ahead before the holidays, we start selling, so we're not jammed
Okay, so You're
operationally.
not going for the October this time, okay, remember they tried to go to October? Okay,
I think last year we, middle of November,
yeah.
yeah,
and that worked well. So that would be a good.
all right,
date.
so let's say then. So the board meets in November, their last meeting that month would be November 19th.
And the first meeting, which
Yeah.
would normally be the 5th,
Oh.
but let's put the caveat as the presidential election, so the board will, but let's just say.
Oh, yeah, that's right,
The
yes.
board will have to pick a different date,
Yeah.
but just for the sake of argument.
So
yeah.
would you want to be trying for that first meeting or that second meeting, and then you could basically have everything up for sale right away?
Yeah.
So. Yeah, what?
That sounds good.
The November 19th or the first one?
Preferably the first November.
Okay.
I can aim for
Alright.
that. Let's aim for that. That's
Okay.
our goal. So we don't know the date yet, but around. Okay.
Yeah, which you probably should start looking at that.
I'll put that on. the
Yeah.
agenda. Yeah, put that for discussion by the board.
Okay.
So that being said, when do we want to meet next?
Do you guys want to meet? What days?
Today's the
Oh, in November.
10th, September, Tuesday.
Do you guys want to meet on the 24th? 2 weeks or, I mean, it doesn't have to be on a Tuesday, just we tend to do it on a Tuesday. Or do you want to push it out to like September, October 1st,
Yeah, that would be better.
October 1st?
There's a bunch going on.
yeah.
You're okay, there's a select board meeting at 6.
Oh.
I'm fine. Okay,
I can multi-candidate.
no, I know you can, just checking. I'm fine with it, so
One.
October 1st at 4.
Okay,
And we'll have what we'll call the detail for the 6 scenarios, and we'll organize it so it's clear, the six potential scenarios for discussion, and then I've got the list here of the follow-up on the study, which I think is mostly Dan and I.
all right, going forward, we can't call it a slush fund, we can't
Yeah.
call it an enterprise fund, it's retained earnings, that's it.
Yeah.
The only verbiage we're gonna use. All right, is that it?
Yeah.
Make a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.